Yeah,
So I thought he would be a real,
that's a great idea.
I told him to get a hold of you, but you might want to get a hold of him. I think it's fun. You want me to watch it? Oh, yeah, you would.
We still have a beaver pelt, so.
That would be, I gave you a good,
Barry, I don't know what site, where are you now? Is it?
oh,
Hey, Roger, good day.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, thanks. How
Good.
are things in the big city of Price?
It's awesome. We got us an Ace Hardware. Huh,
What? That's doing.
yeah, got a big brand new Ace Hardware that just opened up. So,
Ace is the place.
Ace is the place. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that they had so I had just bought a riding lawnmower in Castledale at the Ace Hardware there because these guys hadn't yet opened. And they are owned by Associated Foods. Have you ever heard of that?
Like price kinda,
Yes.
It's like, isn't it? It's like just
you
one of
get,
those.
you like buy a helper and you kind of turn over into.
Castledale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, so they're right by that Lynn's grocery store,
Oh, yeah.
which is an Associated Food store. So Associated has figured out if they put an Ace Hardware next to one of their grocery stores, they do pretty well, apparently. But it's different.
Yeah.
Private owned is much better with their customer service.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Thought I saw Ashley on the side.
She's here. She's yeah, she'll be back.
he's got a quick call.
When she's back, then we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, Colette.
That's Lisa.
Great to see everyone.
And Alyssa, how are you?
Well, your hair looks nice, Colette. I like it.
Thank you. It's too hot to wear my hair down in St. George these days.
Oh, that's true.
That's how it happens.
It's when I run to Moab.
We'll start as soon as Ashley gets back.
She might not know we're waiting for her. Should I look at her?
Pardon?
I'll give her a minute. And she might not know we're waiting for her. She might
Yeah.
assume that we need her to start.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's doctor,
That's fine.
she's fine,
You're with
but
us.
she's not sure about it.
Yeah.
That's a hard place to be.
Your mom's not sure, but the doctor is so
The
sure.
doctor's fine, the mom is.
That is a hard place to be.
Yeah.
Well, it being 3:06, I will call this meeting, the May 29th meeting of the Grand County Economic Opportunity Advisory Board after we approve the new bylaws. And call the meeting to order. And we'll begin with welcome, which you've been welcome, and introduction. So let's start with you, Colette.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colette Cox and I'm the outreach manager for Grand County through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity.
Roger.
Hello, Roger Coyle with the SBDC. I am the regional director for Carbon, Emery, Grand, and San Juan County.
And Lisa,
Elisa Martin, Planning Director for Grand County.
welcome.
Short one,
Pardon?
for a short one.
Oh, no. Well, let's start around the table. Everybody knows each other, but let's go ahead and do it anyway.
Mary McGann, Commissioner.
Shayla Bryant, I'm with Edward Jones and I'm the chamber seat.
Chris Wilson, Kirk Coffey, and member of this board.
Lisa Jeffers, member of the board. Melissa Stokes, Assistant Marketing Director for Economic Development.
Ashley Cornblatt, Western Spirit and Public Land Solutions, member of the board.
Ben Federgill, Director, Economic Development Department.
Skyway, Assistant Director, Economic Development Department for Grand County.
Forrest Rogers, member of the board. Chair. And chair. Yes, thank you. for
Thank
reminding
goodness.
me. Are there any conflicts of interest, disclosures, or ex parte communication that people should share? None. Citizens to be heard? None. Presentations? No presentations, but I would like to bring the board up to date on a couple of items. The first is I just received a thank you Economic Development Advisory Board from the career and post-high school counselor at the high school. This is an update on the Student Career Success Center's graduates. 9 graduates out of a class of approximately 30. So almost a third. 2, including 2 who went to SCSC as juniors last fall and have completed the requirements for their degree. 8 of the 9 have either applied or applying this week for post-secondary education. Most will get the last dollar scholarships that cover all tuition and fees that the need-based Pell Grant, which is about $7,600, doesn't cover. Way cool, thanks to the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Who is that from?
Pardon?
Who is that from?
That's from Sally Cedarstrom.
Oh, okay, great, awesome.
So really, that investment that we made has paid off.
Oh, it seems like it really has.
And that leads me to the next item that I'd like to mention. And that is that since our last meeting, I've been approached by the head of the Beacon program to learn more about this board and what kind of funding we have made possible to the SCSC. We've also heard the mentor program, speaking to the county commission. We've funded the community childcare program for the last couple of years, and we have what is likely a request for support to submit to the Rural Counties Grant this year. And we've invested in the Student Career Success Center. And it seems to me personally that this is the pipeline of future residents, citizens, and the workforce. And so while we may or may not be engaged in funding these different organizations, I feel it's appropriate that we convene a meeting with representatives from those organizations to get a better sense of how they might be better integrated and thought of through the Trails to Tomorrow process, because of course the K-12 group expressed a lot of interest in and concerns about our school district and our school system. So that's an item I'm just gonna mention. I will take the initiative to convene that group as an individual, not as a member of this board. But I think there's a lot that can be learned through the Trails to Tomorrow program, a planning process that can help engage other people who've been involved in it in different ways to think about ways that as a community we can support that system more effectively.
And just by that system, you mean the youth part of it? When you said that system,
I'm thinking of the K-12.
so Beacon and everything.
Yes,
and
Beacon
everything.
Mentoring, all of them.
Got it.
All of
I
them,
know. Yeah.
all of the organizations that are supporting our students. And in some cases, providing extra special attention to certain segments of the population.
Sure.
Because they're our future, they're the community's future.
Totally got it. I just wasn't sure
Yeah,
which.
I'm sorry if I was not
Animal.
as concise
there-
as I could have
No,
been.
you were quite concise. I just lost the antecedent.
Okay.
But, great.
Yes, Mary.
You know, this is exciting. I guess I'm expressing a tale of caution. We have to, I know the county at one point created a process for different organizations to request funding. Because there are so many important needs in this community, and our funds are somewhat limited in what we need to do. And I know we in the county, it's like we attempt to do things that the county on some level should be taken care of, but our bandwidth isn't such. So those are the organizations we tend to, when they apply, approve. And so I think not only convening a group, I think it would be important for this group to have a process and an idea of how we want to look through the process, who qualify, what are the qualifications? You know, be very specific, because we're economic development. What are opportunities now? Soon be, how do these programs that we're funding fit? Like the community childcare definitely does, because without childcare, people can't go to work. Housing fits, because without a house, you can't employ. So we have, I'll stop there, but I do think it's really important we have a process, because we will want to fund them all. We will want to fund them all. I will. Believe me hard, but
We also, I know that they've in the past cautioned us strongly about approving things for under the education area, because they have their own grant funding opportunities that are very different than economic development, but I agree, like, they're necessary. But I know that is some Colette has said in the past, is like, be very careful about funding things that are education specific.
I know we justified student success programs because it was like seed money. It had never been.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so it was getting that going. It was kind of a seed money.
Thank you for the comments. Yes, the SCSE funding came out of our diversification spend down, where we had far more latitude to make decisions and
Then we
invest.
will have that.
That happened in May of last year. My intention is not necessarily to have this be a conversation about funding, but more about coordination of those activities as it fits into the strategic plan process. And I wasn't clear about that earlier on. I should have been. That's why I said this is that I was going to convene it as an individual. Moving to the agenda, we've got a straightforward agenda. I'll introduce the agenda and then turn it over to Ben. I've asked that Ben give us an update on a couple of things. First of all, the visit last week from Better Destinations, the outcomes there, and then how, given the fact that they're down one staff person, how Ben and Sky are dividing the responsibilities, and with Melissa continuing to push forward primarily on social media and tourism recruitment. And then we're not going to go through the amended bylaws. We're going to discuss them and then vote on whether they're ready to be forwarded to the commission. We're going to go back and revisit the previous and potential RCGs that we've looked at in the past. We already have essentially an informal proposal from Rob Walker that I would expect that we should revisit next month, so we can actually formally approve that request if we decide we are going to do that. And then look at the minutes from the past couple of meetings. Any questions, anything that people would like to add?
I'd just love to be on that agenda to do some updates.
Wonderful,
Thanks.
wonderful, thank you. Updates on everything?
Yeah, some different
Great,
parts of
that's great.
my chamber role, I guess.
Okay, and that fits because of the grant that we already have, so we'll look forward to that. Ben?
Okay,
Open
and
up, yeah.
with that, is it okay to give a kind of a review of the last month and tie this all together? Okay, so since we last talked, I attended IPW, which is a large travel trade show in Los Angeles that brings together a lot of the travel planner market from around the world and a lot of the DMOs providers. Key there was 42 meetings with travel planners who either currently send tours or FIT travel or solo travelers, motorcycle travel, very disparate variation of different travel profiles that either come here, for the most part, can't come here, or are interested. I think there was 11 markets that I counted that I met with, Europe, Asia, and such. So that was good. In addition to the scheduled meetings, I was able to meet with some consultants from some of the different markets we're trying to attract, some of the more inclusive markets that we may not have directly marketed to. And then one of the other big advantages was to be able to go meet with the entities that had best practice websites or data presentations that we've been looking at and modeling, things like South Dakota, Visit Wyoming, Travel Texas, people that have put in big efforts that if you're familiar with them, they're there's what we call best in class, things that we're modeling after. Visit Wyoming, they have videography on their website that is very much like mini movie trailers, very inspiring, showing very different aspects to their landscape and their visitation. Also, since we last talked, I believe we had the Love team from Love Marketing come visit us here. We wanted to give them a windshield tour. Key to this is, in our last meeting, Ashley gave a very good presentation based on a conversation that's been going on a long time, which she keeps formalizing, but one of the key takeaways that we've taken away is that there are different kinds of people coming to Grand County, Moab to visit and recreate. There's the hard adventurer, there's the sightseer visitor, and there's that big middle piece in the middle called the overlapper. That's key to conversation we had with Love, and then I'll come back on another piece of that. Also, we passed through the commission, I believe, the CERTA opportunity we have, that CERTA will do a sales leakage study for us. So we will be getting the sales leakage data that helps us understand the dollar that's not hitting 7 hands in our own county. Then let's see, the Love was again very good visit, and they gave us good feedback that yes, we needed to be down here. You are different than the rest of Utah. You know, we took them into the back. Yeah, we took them into the back of Cane Creek with Kate Finley, who showed them, you know, where SAR spends a lot of time and a lot of different recreation. At the Birthing Rock, you can look up into the mountain and see mountain bikers at one level, four-wheelers at another. So you see the multi-use. And so just 2 days, you know, tour through the food truck park, restaurant, where they said, man, it feels like we're sitting in Brooklyn, New York right now. And just that different flavor. So that was very positive. Melissa was very helpful with the tour on that, setting that up and the logistics. So I think we had a good piece there, and we had a very good brainstorming session the next day where we really tied into that 3-piece model, and then the mini sub demographics that fit into each one of those pieces. That leads to having the Trail to Tomorrow team here, which we had them last week. They were here for 3 different pieces. The first was they needed to give their preliminary presentation to the commission. So that was done because of logistics. That was done Wednesday morning, not at the commission meeting, but it was done Wednesday morning in a open meeting. And then we left here and went and had an ideation session with the steering committee, which was very productive. It was 3 hours, and you know, really worked on where this is headed, all the work that's been done, and working towards the final presentation and recommendations, which, as we know, will be presented to the commission, and the commission will either accept or not accept the recommendations for what is basically a 5-year plan. Some good things that came out of that, and this goes kind of back to that presentation by Ashley, is we also got the business sentiment and the visitor sentiment preliminary data results. And that's very helpful because it's showing the tie between what's happening here with our business, but also how that ties to perceptions of visitors who have either been here or not been here. And they have been presented with that idea of the 3 visitor model. So that's in their headset as well. As we go forward with back to Love and starting to talk about co-op applications and branding efforts, you know, they presented that they need to do some data and some metric research. Well, we said, we've already got that for you. We've got the business and the visitor sentiment study. So the data is already there. Don't do any surveys. It's packaged. So we're leveraging and being able to use some of our efforts in several different places, which, you know, that's highly cost beneficial, but it's also very good for the scope of our projects because it's keeping everything on the same path. We had the steering committee meetings for a couple hours, then met privately with Trail to Tomorrow team. And the next day we had 2 scheduled open forums, which were scheduled to report back what had happened in the open forums that were held in last winter, as well as gather new data. With a lot of promotion, newspaper, radio, word of mouth, both presentations, we had 0 attendees. So that, I don't say that, I mean, it's not something we're excited to report, but we maximized the time. That gave us other hours to then start talking about, you know, their experiences other places. But I think it's also an indicator of, burnout, strategic planning fatigue. There was a group of seniors there having the senior games, about 50 people. We invited them in, and the really neat lady I talked to said, we've been to tons of these. We've told people what to do over and over, and no one's ever done it. We're gonna play cornhole and cook hamburgers. We're not coming in. And I say that jokingly, but it was kind of it was an interesting metaphor for maybe, like we know in the nonprofit area, because we have so many, that we have some donor fatigue. Well, maybe we have some participation fatigue. We know we can fill a room full when we have something controversial. We didn't have anything controversial. So that's a data point I think we need to at least recognize and move forward. Another side note, a few weeks ago, as many of you know, Chris Marsh, our good friend, fundraiser, works in many of the different areas we're in. She got a really neat dog that she'd had 2 weeks. 2 weeks in, her dog ran off. And so, having played with this dog, it was a pretty cool little dog. So we were all heartbroken that her brand new puppy was gone. You may have seen the flyers around town. I know that my wife and I, along with a lot of other people, spent a lot of time looking, probably 9 hours between the two of us. And the reason I tell this story is, number one, it has a very happy ending. On Saturday at midnight, by some miracle, at 3 weeks and 1 day, she got her dog back. It was found. So that was a great way to wake up Saturday morning to that news. But one thing that happened in those 9 hours or whatever, and I told her to give her dog credit for this, is I found a lot of places in Moab I did not know existed. I walked into, and I said that jokingly, but it's like, what better drill for someone in this role to walk into some of these neighborhoods, to see places I didn't even know existed that are right there. Number one, I will take away is this town is a lot bigger than I thought it was, and there are neighborhoods that are all over the place that I'm glad that I understand what they are now. And one of them is the one that people are being evicted from. So that was an interesting experience.
Do you want to sign up for canvassing for?
Got us, I'm Switzerland here. I'm Switzerland.
Not allowed to have opinions.
I've asked my dog to go loose.
Yeah.
Actually, up to going around.
Yeah.
So was the dog in okay shape?
It
Help.
lost 25% of its body weight, but I think it checked out. So
Wow.
it's a very happy ending. Back to where Forrest introduced this, what's happening in our office. We've been a man down since March when Robert Ribery retired. We've also had some kind of role challenges with understanding some of the marketing dispersions and stuff, but it's always good when these things happen because you have to reassess. And first thing I'll say is the team has been great. Everyone's jumped in and worn many hats. Couple things that we've done is, and if you've attended any of the TCAB meetings, Melissa has really taken on the role of building the FAM model, which is familiarization, which is a model that allows entities to come visit our location versus us going out into the world to present it. They can experience what's going on, and then either through media or travel booking, they go back and, you know, start putting us on the radar screen and highlight us in that sense. That is something that we've been working on, continuous improvement to have a higher ROI model, and also to understand how we include more people. So for instance, that we don't just pick a hotel or ask, that we understand and almost put it out like an RFP. That was the feedback we got from the TCAB. So we're working through understanding how, through our policies and stuff, that we can do this and do it right. But that's a continuing improvement. Melissa's taken on the role of doing a lot of the sales leads requests and the requests for information that we get through Discover Moab. So we've done that as a team. We've all worked working on preparing for the Love co-op that's coming up. We've talked about the 2025 strategy and getting to a place where, as you know, we're working off much more of an operations plan and marketing plan, so that we're not reactive, that we get proactive and we start shooting very arrow darts. Personally, where we've divided up on the economic side and the marketing side is, I've been working on getting an RFP written, which will go out hopefully this week. It's been under review for a web platform hosting and redesign. We've also posted the position we up-leveled and posted the position that was left open when Robert retired. So we are now getting applicants. We have some very qualified applicants that are coming in there. We've worked trying to understand what we need to be ready for on the grants process and a couple other things there. Sky on her side has worked very hard collaborating with the GCAT team, the Crux Academy, heading up the Finley video shoot that Melissa has also worked on, getting a script that ties in with Love, that we are coordinating all our efforts so that we can get maximum traction out of. And then I think we've just all kind of jumped in and pitched in where we've needed to. So have I left things out, Scott and Melissa? Is there other things that we're missing on that?
Oh, the National Geographic.
Yes, we got through a marketing plan with National Geographic UK Traveler Specific. And we just had our first project manager meeting this morning, where I met with the project manager to kind of start laying out what we want to do. They're going to come back with some research showing anything that they've shown that highlighted Moab prior, as well as help us understand their demographic. You know, do people have a familiarity with us? Is this a new concept, so that we understand how to write the articles, which will then be distributed through different forms to reach a minimum of 1.4 million UK people. So that was done on a very shoestring $14,000 purchase. That use it as a baseline. If it goes well, great. We'll start building off it. If it doesn't, we'll know where to pivot and react. Is there anything else from your side?
I have one question. When you said that you changed the plan with Better Destinations, or I mean, are we
We didn't
still?
change it. We never
I didn't
changed
know
it
if you-
yet. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't even know I don't know what we were locked into or whatever. But my question is, are they still gonna do a visitor survey?
It's been, yeah, oh yeah,
Fantastic, because I actually think the overlappers is smaller.
okay.
And I think that, which is actually a good thing, because I think if we really understand those two other groups, we know, like, you've got to spend a certain type of money going this way and a
That-
certain type of money going that way, and maybe not worry about those ones in the middle. 'Cause
Right.
they're
Yeah,
gonna get the
that-
message either way.
That's actually, and without going into a deep discussion, that's a really good thing you bring up, because we have not only taken that model and built on it, and then understanding within one of those groups, the micro demographics, for instance, you know, you can stereotype different kind of world travelers, the ones that, there's one country, I won't name them by country, there's a country that will come here, see a couple parks and relax, but probably will not go into the hiking.
Yeah.
There's another country that I'm gonna see all 5 parks, I'm gonna be into the Grand Canyon, I will be back on the airplane back to my country, and I will have seen it all, and I don't need to relax. Then there's the others that will will come.
Countries are.
that will rent a bike, that will hike, and so starting to understand those, then the challenge, and like I say, this isn't for discussion, because we could be here for a week, but we have taken those different pieces and we've said, okay, the challenge is that we need to understand marketing company, Better Destinations, all these people. Tell us which one is the one you talk to get the big group here, or the right group. It's, and there's many different theories on this, so that's why I won't even open the door, but,
Well, and even after that, like after we have a little more data and think about it a little bit more, then it's time to do what I was kind of whimpering about earlier, which is looking at the product mix.
exactly, so,
And saying, once we know, like, if we're gonna look at more sightseeing things that we can pump up besides arches to get people to stay another day, and how do we make them famous? Do we need to change the name? First thing we need to do is talk to the BLM before
We're
we
there.
go crazy,
yeah,
but yeah,
we're on that plan, so
So that-
those are heard.
that'll be really exciting.
And then the final thing I will just say is, prior to coming to this meeting for the last half hour, Cassie Oliver, the new chamber director, and Shaylee were nice enough to bring Mark Welker, who is the business outreach director for Senator Lee, to our office, and we had a nice half-hour discussion talking about what his priorities are and what we were working on, and they kind of match up, and no one hit it, no one said the other guy was not working on the right thing. So I think we're all in concert. So that's the update. Does anyone have any questions?
Sounds great. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the amended bylaws review and economic opportunity advisory board approval for commission action. The revised MOU, the revised bylaws are pages 5 to 8. And they have gone through legal review, admin, back to legal, and Sky says that we've been working with this for 3 or 4 months, that with only minor clerical changes, that this amended bylaws is good to go. So I would entertain a motion. So let's have a motion to approve. Shaylee's approved.
I make a motion to approve the changes of the file.
Nita,
Second.
Melissa. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
Just,
Yes.
I think it's just to make sure I understand what you're saying already, which is that based on what we did here, you're saying that the only things that have in all this process that's occurred since then, between legal and other folks at the county, the only changes that have been made are minor clerical changes. The substance of what we did is all still intact.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that clarifying question. I'm going to turn it over to Sky.
Okay.
Oh, don't turn it over to me. When this first was presented at this board, it went back to commission admin. There were some changes in it.
Okay,
There were some significant changes made. Removal of the secretary role was one of those things. The term was modified to 4 years because that's standard across boards for the county. So that was a change. We still kept the 2-term limit, which was thrown out in the original thing. I think those are the 2 big things.
So you kept a 2-year term limit.
It's 4-year term limit, I believe. We said 4
You could say, yeah.
2 terms.
So theoretically, you could serve for 8 years.
Correct.
And Chris,
Mhm.
thank you for asking that question. We actually did make some substantive changes before it went to review in the role and purpose of the advisory board,
Mhm.
adding the comments that had been made about making this a much more strategic thinking board, adding, providing guidance and counsel to the department and thereby also to the commission.
Yeah.
We changed some of the language about voting membership. We didn't change the number of voting members, but we changed the workforce development potential position to a,
Like
to an
broader.
appointee.
Yeah.
Right, and so, so those changes that we had made were the substantive changes. And then county admin brought the format more in line with the other bylaws of other county boards. And then the final review was primarily clerical. Did I get that right, Stephen?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for taking that last review. So, any other questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. At this point, I want to recognize that board member Dave Sackerson has joined us remotely. He did that about 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. Dave, welcome.
He also voted in
Yes.
favor of that.
That's
Thank
why I
you.
want- That's why I wanted to make sure that
We saw
people
him.
knew that he was a legitimate voter. Okay.
Could I add one quick
Please.
request? So this is on the commission meeting agenda for this coming week. And what would be helpful, and I'm going to request from Forrest and Chris, because you sort of were the spearheading bodies in the beginning of these changes. If you could provide me a quick little blurb as to the reasons for the fundamental wanting to change. Just quick little bullets.
Sure.
That would be helpful for the commission agenda.
Does anybody have to be there for that?
I have Ben and you on the agenda.
Okay.
You could remote. You don't need to be, we will have someone.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your patience with that process. We got great help from ComAdmin and from Stephen and his team, so thank you for that. Thank you. The next topic is the rural county grant projects. And Colette Shaley was earlier reminding us about the requirements for the rural counties grant, but you could also do the same. And any updated observations or suggestions would be appreciated.
I can give you the quick rundown, which is that the projects for the Rural County Grant and the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant do need to be surrounded on business recruitment, retention, or development, workforce development, or business infrastructure and industry infrastructure. And so those are the main categories of projects. And so we can be creative within those confines.
We've got guardrails. But
For sure.
have at it between them.
And I'm always happy to push the limits as long as it's a good fit for the community and as long as it fits within those boundaries.
We appreciate you.
Well, I know that, we got a little sparse at the end of last meeting there. I think we ended with like 2 or 3 of us at the end of last meeting. So what we ended up talking about, was how can we best get the word out, to the town about parameters and who can apply and who should apply. So it does kind of feel like we're kind of always like trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel finding projects. And I think we've had great projects that we funded, but do we really have a community that knows they have access to potentially apply for some of
We
these?
did an
grants?
article in the paper, like earned media, like people are interested. Maybe
For sure,
pitch it.
That's how we
to the
end
press
it
and
for a
say,
future
hey,
agenda item.
you should, this is something people care about. Are you interested?
and get them to just write a piece for us, and we could figure out what we want to include in that piece. I mean, people read the paper,
And social media.
and then,
Lot of
hey, once we
opportunity.
once we have the piece, we could share it through social media.
Well, I know like when there's a lot of board openings, you know, a couple years ago, Alicia shared that on Facebook, and I think it actually got some good traction to get people to apply for boards.
And I did, ping Colette on that to see if there was any, based on, our last meeting, if there was anything we needed to be aware of or consider in sort of canvassing opportunities. Do you have any feedback on that, Colette? Just maybe what other communities have done that successfully, or possibly what we should consider if there's things we probably shouldn't do?
You know, I have to say that honestly, Grand County has been a real leader in the state in being creative and using the money appropriately. But again, last year was a little bit rushed due to the changes with staffing. And it was just easy to fall back on some projects that had been funded before. So the housing, the childcare, we had talked about supporting business services, either partnering with the Small Business Development Center, Women's Business Center of Utah, creating an innovation and business assistance office that, you know, we had a specific location that we talked about. We can always look at if there is infrastructure that's needed for an upcoming project. I know there have been some, this is just a throw it out there type of situation, but I know there have been some proposed projects for hotels and glamping sites and things like that. So if that was a project that the board and the county wanted to support, and there was a stretch of land that needed infrastructure to move forward and build a glamping or hotel site that was going to significantly increase the economy, that could be considered. If you have a light manufacturing firm that wanted to come in so you could diversify your economy, however, in order to entice them to your county, you would need to put in some infrastructure. We could do that. So we definitely have used the funding in other parts of the states for business and innovation centers, industrial park infrastructure. We've partnered with the tourism groups and had a focus on tourism, whether that's additional marketing, training, workforce development. I believe that Brad Anderson was there recently doing some training. So activities like that. So it really depends. You can partner with your local university if they've got some workforce development programs with the university that are happening. In other parts of the state, we've partnered on things like truck driver training or welder training, because those were key individuals that were needed in the local economy. So hopefully that gives you a few more ideas.
And this is all state money, not federal. There's no federal piece of it, or is there?
This is state money. Sometimes there are pockets of federal money. That's a great question. Sometimes there are pockets of federal money that we do offer through our office in the form of grants, but usually they're very specific. But the Rural County Grant and the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant, that is all state money.
So Colette, when you're doing those kind of trainings with those funds, are they piggybacking on custom fit funds as well?
They can work directly with custom fit funds. Absolutely. For instance, I'll go back to the Brad Anderson training. So Brad Anderson comes to tourism-based community, tourism-based economy communities, and we'll do customer service training and mid-level management training for hospitality managers. And we'll use the custom fit money to pay for 40% of the cost of that training. And then the rural county grant can be used for the rest, which is great.
Yeah.
We also have used the funding. So one of the big needs across the state is pilots training and also aviation mechanic training. So we've had partnered with SUU and Utah State in 2 different regions to purchase equipment to train aviation mechanics. And so that's an example. It's quite different than something that you've done there in Grand County, but if you have a need that's very specific like that, we can take a look at it for sure.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background on custom fit, in our region, it's 50% that custom fit will cover. And custom fit requires that the clients come in with the other 50%. However, that other 50% can be paid on their behalf from a grant or something of that nature. So let your people about that.
Thank you, Roger. Chris, you,
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about what the best way for us to have in front of us when it comes time to make a decision. I mean, I think to me, the question is like, when we get to the point where we need to make a decision on the rural county grants and what we recommend to the commission, we want to have in front of us a good set of projects that are realistic, that are useful, that support the goals that we have for economic development in the community. So the question is sort of like, how do we do that best? And I think it's, to me, there's a challenge here because we want to have there to be like a lot of public awareness and a lot of proposals, but we don't want to necessarily have a process that's so open that we're fielding 50 applications and able to fund 2 of them and end up in a STAR grant replay where we get a lot of people that are upset with the process, right? Like, so to me, that's like on one side, we don't want that to happen, right? On the other side, we don't want to have one project that we get to decide on because that's not a real decision. That doesn't, that doesn't
Yeah, so
offer
how
us the
do
best
Find
opportunity.
that middle ground.
Exactly. So, I mean, to me, I think there are probably a lot of ways we can do it, and definitely think we should have some discussion about it. But to me, one of the things we could do is like, we can put some of the burden on ourselves to each come up with something, right? Something that we've been thinking about that we think is important for economic development in the community, and then do just like the basic groundwork. I mean, that can just mean like convening a meeting about it, have a conversation with a key stakeholder. And the question there at the beginning is just like, I mean, because there's some like, we need it to check several boxes, right? Like it has to meet the economic development box, like the purposes of the grants, right? But we also know that we need a partner. Like there needs to be somebody who's capable and willing to administer it, right? And so that would be one of the questions, like, does it meet the qualifications? Is it economic development related? Do I have a realistic partner for this coming year, this coming grant cycle? If so, let's go forward. Now, like, are they willing to write us up a proposal? Like, it could be a 1-pager, it doesn't have to be complicated, but like, if each of us could just like take a couple steps with one idea, I feel like by the time we come to sitting down and making a decision, we could have 3 or 4 really good ideas in front of us. And some of this could still like, I'm not trying to say we shouldn't write an article that's in the paper that, like that's, to me, that's another piece of maybe a broader process.
Like, for example,
Yeah,
what if there was a nonprofit in town that was ready to buy some hotels and turn them into apartments?
If there are those a motel, yeah, I would
That are
think
for sale.
There's a lot, there's what, like 7 or 8?
Yeah.
There's all.
so.
One thing too is if you wanna go up to the 40,000 foot level, supporting what Chris was saying, if those first findings of the strategic plan that was reported to the commission give kind of a high level need.
Yeah.
There was the need for was housing, workforce housing, transportation, and then infrastructure for either remote workers or that out of those 3 very high level, there may be some subsets in there that would actually point you to a grant opportunity that would fit in the parameters of the grant.
But I think the idea of us kind of planting some seeds and encouraging, like, I know some people that are really concerned about housing, that have some access to capital, that are interested in trying to make it move the needle, you know? And so maybe there's a way to say, well, if you got this much more capital, or how much more do you need to make this work, right? And because I think too, that a lot of times our housing conversations are like you visualize a house. But there's a lot of people who don't need a house. They need a small efficiency apartment, kind of like some of these hotel rooms.
I mean, I
So
think it's a
I
great
think,
idea.
yeah, just to like see if, but, and maybe it goes nowhere, like, no, not
Especially
gonna
if we
happen.
could
But I
find a
think,
hotel that was in town, then transportation would be less of an
less
issue.
than- right, it's not pushing everyone out to the valley and then how do they get back? Yeah,
I mean, to me, this
And-
adds a whole layer to what we're trying to do as a board here.
right.
Because it's not just about the funding. Yes, that's awesome. Like when we can provide the funding and we can actually help access state funding, that's fantastic. But we can help play a convening role that can lead to other funding opportunities. I mean, you know, half the battle for getting funding is getting the right people together and creating a proposal, right? And having people that are actually going to do it. So then there are a lot of, you know, I just think if we sort of embrace a process like that, we can end up doing a lot more as a board than just getting good RCG
Totally.
projects.
I
We
just
can-
want to play devil's advocate
Yeah,
on this,
please.
because I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I was on the Star Grant Committee. I know what that felt like. But on a devil's advocate side is one of the things that the state and federal levels are getting really involved in is trying to get government out of business. And from an economic development standpoint, us going to do our little biddings and finding projects instead of trying to embrace the community. Because there's probably great ideas that we will never know about unless we start asking the community. If we are the ones going, because we have such a limited scope, like we all live in our own little bubble, in our own little world, and what is important to me is gonna be different than what's important to you. And so our little projects, I think, are always great, but we're gonna live in this little tiny scope. And I just worry that like by not embracing that because we know it's cumbersome, and that's the truth, it is horribly cumbersome to get 50 project applications. Maybe we find some diamonds in the rough there of like going, oh, I would never have thought about how this can move the needle. And they would not have known about it if we hadn't advertised. Do you know what I mean?
And that's where maybe
Yeah, I think
advertising
it should be
without
both.
having a broad opening, a
Right.
call for applications
Right.
is maybe like a middle ground there, where
Yeah.
it can be like
Let's-
people who are
let's-
just reach out.
Good ideas floating around here, and I think we need to be clear that everybody's putting their thoughts forward. Melissa was gonna say something, and then I'd like to respond to the conversation that Chris and Shayla have had.
No, all I was gonna suggest is that I think you're right. I feel like there are valid adds to all of those approaches. And I think that if we have a structured process in place, we're able to accommodate all of those a lot more effectively and a lot more efficiently. So maybe one of the things that I would suggest is from the economic development team, for example, to identify what are like the three biggest needs or the three biggest challenges that you're looking at, so that as we communicate that out to everyone, we can say, if you have an idea, if you have a project, this is what we're looking for. This is the criteria. This is what we consider to be moving the needle, and we would ask that you format your approach or your suggestions, whether they come from Ashley or whether they come from someone who saw it from an email that was deployed by the chamber or whatever. I know that here are the needs that we're looking at. This is kind of, and then the third thing that I would suggest is that we could spend some time meeting with people who have those proposals in advance to help them whittle down some of those suggestions and ideas and kind of bring them back to center. Meaning, that's a really great idea. Now let's talk about how that impacts workforce development. Or that's a really great idea, but so that by the time that we get the proposal, whether that's 5 really good ones or 50 diamonds in the rough, they've been refined to the extent that they're really competitive proposals that address directly what we've already identified are the key assets or opportunities or needs.
Yeah.
And we've kind of helped them work through that. But I think if we kind of have that intake process, you're right, getting them in from other people, getting them in from members of this board, they're all going to be really helpful. They'll be good proposals and they'll be really laser focused and targeted into what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's the both and.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna say. That's the both
Good combo.
and for this process. So
and I'm happy to take a crack at writing a process that we might deploy to say, here's what we're gonna push out to the community to start soliciting those, and they'll know exactly what it is that we're looking for and what moves the needle. And then we'll also have it in hand for ourselves as we start looking at projects that we might recommend or suggest.
So we're kind of combining the parameters of the grant and the goal and the needs that we've identified.
Yeah, because I feel like the parameters of the grant, right, that's the structure.
Mhm.
And I feel like the needs of the community is what we're really trying to get at. So like, what are the 1, 2, 3 things that we really feel like we're missing? Especially coming from the Economic Development Department to say, you know, what is it really that we have to have? Is it still childcare, or is it now housing, or is it, you know, that we want to attract more industry, or that we want to add to the product mix for off-season tourism or whatever?
Yeah.
We need to identify what it is that we feel like are the biggest wins that we're looking for, so that as people start thinking, wow, I have something that I'd like to propose, that's great. Does it meet these 3 things?
Yeah.
And can you fit it into this framework?
And it's not government, like what I was suggesting wouldn't be a government-owned hotel that's providing housing. It would be either an NGO or a nonprofit or a public or a privately owned business prospect. Like, if you can get the hotel cheap enough, you could do long-term rentals and be fine, kind of thing. So it's not, it wouldn't be the government is getting into business. It would be the government is assisting us to solve our problems through investing in private business, not, not.
We don't want to do that.
We don't want to own, we don't want to be the landlord. No, so Shayla, that's my point. It wouldn't be, it would just be, I mean, SBA grants and all these other things that help businesses get started are mission critical for everyone. And if you were lucky enough to get through your professional life with not having to do that, great. But if you live in a rural community, it's super likely that you've already done that. So anyway.
good discussion.
Forrest,
Yes, Colette,
can I add just a couple things to the discussion really quick?
please.
So, just want to follow up on a few comments that were made, and also add to the list of how you can evaluate the ideas. First and foremost, I would say as you're evaluating, see if the project can be paired with existing funding. So for instance, with the Moab Streetscape project that we helped fund this year, that our funding was paired with ADOT funding and some federal funding. And so it made for a multi-million-dollar project. And so you can pair this money with existing projects that need help getting over a line. So that's one thing. The second thing is this money can be used to really set the stage. So the example of creating workforce housing through an existing motel and converting it. Something like that would be possible. Workforce housing is a number one in most every business owner's book, because without the housing, they don't have employees. But we want to set the stage instead of working towards creating personal wealth for an organization or an individual. So setting the stage would be putting in the infrastructure so the site is ready to build, instead of giving money towards the purchase price of materials or a building or something like that that would reside with a nonprofit or with an individual. So I would warn you on that, just to stay away from things like that. The other thing is being careful. You can chop up the money so small that it's not really impactful for any organization that you give it to. And so you can do that. You can give it away in little bits, $1,000 at a time if you so choose. However, I've seen with other counties, it's gone a lot further and had a higher impact with larger grants, so to speak. So those are just a few things, and I can email you the information, just the little blurb that is kind of the guidelines. I'll send that right now to you, Forrest, and to Ben and Sky, just so you have that and you can share that with the team and include that as you're doing a search. And if you do end up writing an article, I'm happy to help with something like that to help you get out some good information, to get some good proposals.
Thank you. That's great help for our work between the guide rails, being creative in that way. And I would like the recording to note that Melissa Jeffers volunteered to draft the process. And so she will be the first
be
person
perfect
to
for it.
whom I forward the material that Colette is sending us. This is a great conversation, and it kind of reflects the fact that we've sort of been, in terms of the last couple of years of the Rural Counties Grant, we've sort of been in a rut rather than in a groove. And this leads us to thinking about the more strategic role of the advisory board as we look ahead to future years. County does not have a PIO, a public information officer. So the chamber will be an important megaphone for the messages we're trying to get out to people. And certainly as USU staffs the SBDC here, they will be another resource for us. So enough on that. Let's review briefly then what we've talked about in the past. And I don't necessarily think we need to make any decisions. We can have a brief discussion. They can be as brief as we want them to be. Shaylee's going to address the chamber. And before we begin, and so we'll start there with your update. But before we begin that, I wanted to let Roger know that we have, with the information we've received from Jason about the budget proposal and the revised schedule for the hire, we're now understanding that the budget the SBDC has proposed included a 10% administrative fee, and wondered where that came from. And the response from Jason and the SBDC team was that typically that's a 26.7% administrative fee that the SBDC applies. And they've selected 10% as a much more realistic fee for us here in Moab. Did I say that accurately, Roger?
Yeah, that sounded just like what Jason explained.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you if you're able to send a reply to all the position description that's been posted for the position in Moab. And the intent will be at the next meeting to recommend the revised budget to the commission for their approval.
Do you want the chamber to send that out,
Pardon?
the job description, or
Do you have the job description itself?
no, if he sends it to us, do you want us to send out a post?
Yeah. So I've got to get into that now. Now that we know, I'm assuming this means we have a green light. Is that correct, Forrest?
Yes.
Okay.
Green light on the budget. Yes.
Okay, so I will get into that now and start going through the interviewing process and selecting different people to be on that committee. And we will look at the job description more thoroughly, and I will make that available to you.
Wonderful. Thank
And
you.
I think Shaylee's asking if you want the chamber to post that so more candidates know.
Yeah, for sure, Melissa. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. As soon as we kind of get it, I'll take a look at that, and then we'll get it out to everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Shaylee?
Okay, well, it's kind of been a crazy month. Ben knows a lot about what's been going on, so, just real quick, I feel like our trainings have been going pretty well. We are having a little bit of a hard time getting the word out, so I don't, if anyone has any better ideas, like we're trying to get it out to the business list that we've gotten from Sky, mostly using, social media and, emails, but we have pretty good showings at the trainings, but I think we can do better. Our next training is next week, June 5th, at the Element on social media and how to use it within your business development and marketing and things. So, it's gonna be in person. It's not a Zoom at the Element. Lunch will be provided. So we feel like feeding people always brings a bigger crowd. We also have been communicating with the governor candidates and our luncheon in June 18th, we should have multiple governor candidates for a meet and greet. And we're hoping to have them all, but some of them are a little bit easier to get in touch with, but we're, June 18th. I don't think we have a location. We probably do have a location, but I have it written down. But I think that's gonna be awesome to like do a meet and greet, because I think honestly, our governor candidates do actually feel like Grand County is a really necessary place to come, and that is prior to the primaries, which we know in Utah is pretty much the main election part. So that should be a good one, and everyone's invited. We're telling all businesses. And
When is that?
June 18th. It's our luncheon. And I think we're gonna even try to put it in the paper, it's planned. So, but that should be cool. And then we're hoping either July or August, we're gonna do the commission. We're gonna start with the commission meet and greet. We understand that's a little early, but we decided to do it that way because we feel like, or even July, but we feel like we want people to start to get to know the candidates early, so they're not just trying to make their decisions on issues like within a month. So, kind of keep an eye out for that. So I just went with Ashley to DC on the Utah Chambers trip. It was at the beginning of the month. Crazy awesome trip. It's incredible. Like you have Box Elder County, who literally had 20 people there. And then there was me and Ashley. So it's really interesting because we got face-to-face time with, you know, all our
All our
congressmen, the
delegations.
senators, like we got some really cool one-on-one time with them. We were able to ask questions, but it's incredible how much they use Grand County as an example in everything they're talking about. They use Grand County as both positives and negatives, but they talk about Grand County a lot. Some of the big things. Today, me and Cassie, which by the way, Cassie, the new director of the chamber, is a diamond in the rough. She was such an amazing find. I'm so glad that my interview team found her, because she is incredible. But her and I took around Mark, like he was saying that we brought him to meet, and took him to different businesses, helped him kind of see some of the opportunities that we're facing and challenges we're facing here. Asked him kind of what Senator Lee's focuses are and what are majorly important to him. Some of the top ones right now, which we also talked about in DC, was the House Act and the REINS Act. Now the House Act, it is currently trying to be refined and going through Congress again, but the House Act is they're asking to of federally public lands to give us the potential of 1% of it. And it has to fit very, very specific parameters, but to give us 1% to potentially build affordable housing. They would be very strict parameters. That's why it's not finalized. He says he doesn't think that the dial will move on it until after the presidential election. But it is the potential. They said if they actually use Grand County as an example, when we were in DC on this, they said even 1/2 of 1% here would double our housing. So some
I just-
interesting things.
The thing about this bill, and we talked to them a lot about it, is that unless the BLM has a lot more funding, they wouldn't even have the staff to even do whatever the plan is. And the environmental community is gonna go to the mat against it. So it's really, but there, the fact that he cares about our housing crisis is good. And if we came up with other things he could do, there is this, another bill that Mike Lee's never talked about, but the Rural Outdoor Investment Act, which is changing, the purpose of that is to make, plain vanilla economic development money, a little more specific to recreation community needs. And that's just, it's been introduced, it's not gonna move either. But there are these other, that came from Schumer's office, so you can see that they're different. But anyway, the point is that they do care about us and they are interested and there are possibilities, but I said, okay, fund the BLM. And then that if you really want this to pass, fund the BLM. He just was like, mind blown. But, anyway,
But
so, but it's good that we're there and we're talking about our
Right.
problems and they paid attention to us. It was awesome. So,
But I definitely think like I would really like us as a county and a city, like there were mayors there and mayor wives and commissioners and city council people and business owners. And like, we just were really super underrepresented. And so it'd be really cool next year if we had like, 8 to 10 of us from Grand County. So I just think we should definitely keep that like on the radar.
Blake Moore gave us a tour of the Capitol in the middle of the night. It was one of the
so
coolest
cool.
things. And I've been to DC
He's fun.
4,000 times and that was so, and everyone's like, oh, this is just a tour. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is never going to happen. Yeah. Anyway,
What, I've been following the House Act. And from talking to BLM people and people who understand the process, we can almost do that right now without an act. Because the BLM gave us the land for the aquatic center. The BLM gave us our land for the cemetery. We just have to have the proposal. And then they deed restrict it. They say, we will give you this land,
And it could be like a land trust or.
but it can only, they're very strict, it can only be used for recreation. It can only be used for the cemetery, it can only be, so I don't think we really need to go through Congress and do all of that. I think we need to just come up with an area that we feel would be worthwhile and create a proposal like we did for the other two.
Well, I think we have support from a state level and even from a federal level, because this is not a right or a left problem. This is an everyone problem. We all, so it's cool. Like we had a really effective meeting with Berkshire Hathaway. Who they had some great ideas on how to help too. But it was cool. Like we took him to some, real estate and we went to tourism and we did manufacturing. We took him down to Moab Bit and so there were some really effective conversations that were happening of like some solutions. One of the big things that he suggested is on the different boards. He says he's run chambers for years. To kind of tweak our ex officio and start inviting our representatives to be ex officios, our state representatives to be board members. Because then he says he would make asks of them. He would say,
wait, chamber board.
on the chamber board, on this board, they make
We've got
them.
that on the Hunter board, now we
Yeah.
have our.
Yeah, because then you can make asks of them. And he says, as long as you're pretty specific and say, I want you to go find us businesses that want this. County wants to work with them for tax incentives or whatnot. They'll go find those for us. They'll do the work because they really do work for us in theory, but we have to start asking. So that was one big thing that Mark said.
Shaylee?
yeah.
Before you get there,
Mom stuff.
you said he,
Mhm.
so who is he?
The guy, Mark,
Mark.
that was here today with the Senator. Lee.
He's the
Mark
district
Welker,
staffer for
Yeah.
Lee's office.
right here.
I can never
Okay, I just
remember
want to
his
make sure we all knew. who
Yeah, Mark
was
Welker.
and knew his last name, so.
So, and then. Business summit, real quick. I think we're like doing really good. I have missed the last couple meetings, so if do either of you guys want to give us a quick update, we're taking a tour of Red Cliffs.
Give everybody a really brief update.
Okay, cool.
We have a good planning team. We have a good events team, Powerhouse Events, which just put on the Mountain West Trails Conference in Vernal earlier this month that I attended. And we're definitely changing directions on how we're approaching this business summit than we have in the past. It's definitely more Moab business, Moab outdoor recreation, tourism, and builds from there. So I think it's going to be a very positive experience for a lot of people. We're still in building up the agenda phase. I think that's.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
I'm just nervous. I would feel a lot better if it was 2 months ago and you were here. I mean, I'm just saying, we gotta.
If it was over.
Well, no, but I mean, if it was 2 months, if we were having this conversation, if we were at this point and it was March. I would feel a little bit
Well, and
better.
I think a big I mean, we're playing catch up because we
I know.
lost the chamber director.
I know all the
I think we're
reasons.
doing
Yeah.
the very best.
So it's just, that's just the downside is, I think it's gonna be really good, and I just hope we can pull it off in time. And I'm just a little bit worried, we need more speakers, and I don't know if they have them yet, but we're close, we're right. It's gonna be really, I think a lot of people are gonna go and they're gonna get a lot out of it, but I just, I'm excited that they have the save the date up now, and it's really good, but next year, we're gonna know a lot more and be able to
We'll start
get a
preparing
little
in
more
September.
ahead. That's my word. But I heard the Trails Conference was great, and I didn't hear about that till 2 months before, so maybe we're fine.
And it is Moab, so you don't tell anybody to go anywhere until a week before. the
Yeah, right,
event.
or they'll forget, right? Yeah, you're right.
You're learning so fast.
That
It's
is
gonna
so
be
true.
fine. It's gonna be fine. Everything you said is right. They're great. I think the agendas meets the need right now. You know, to talk about like, how does Moab grow? What are we doing? Like, what pieces matter? I just want to add one more thing about housing. And this could work as a grant thing. We have a lot of junkyards. Most cities in the West have a lot of junkyards. Like if you lived here 50 or 100 years ago, you kept everything.
Did you see the Keo junkyard is for sale?
There are a lot of junkyards.
Which yours, which one's for sale?
The Keos, the bugs.
Oh, yeah,
Volkswagen bugs.
yeah.
I always thought that is,
Thought that was a car dealership.
I mean, it's for
But
sale, but it's for
But my
sale.
point is that we have a lot of land that if we had like a nonprofit salvage company that was willing to help people clean up their land, because it affects not only development on that land, but I've seen it affect selling lots that have a view shed of the junkyard. So it's just another, maybe that's, depending on how our parameters all work out, maybe that's something that we could entice them to do.
That's great. So thank you for adding that. Just because I'm somebody who needs at least 2 months before I know a date, what's the date?
It's the.
August 19th,
And 20th.
my wife's birthday.
It's August.
19th and 20th.
It's 2 days.
Yeah, the reason we're doing it as a 2-day, we decided that we feel like there's a lot of locals that don't get to experience the tourist side of Moab necessarily. We go do our own little local things, but we're having outfitters provide us with different activities day
Great.
one. And then we're gonna convene as a potluck, well, not potluck,
Good job.
It's
A dinner.
It's an outdoor dinner. We've
An
been
outdoor
to
dinner on the
the,
river.
campground, the
And
campsites at
no, at Gold Bar.
Gold Bar. And that name does not match.
It
that
doesn't
place.
at all.
It makes it, anyway, we rented all 3 of the pavilions at Gold Bar. We took over the place.
Cool.
And so we're working on getting outfitters and restaurants who want to contribute. I think it's gonna be really fun. And so that was the night before, and then the activities during the day. And part of that is like for different business owners to get to know other people's businesses. So,
And then we'll have the trainings the second day, not even trainings, they're just different agendas.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna end the event with a sunset cruise on side by sides and stuff.
Great.
So that we're incorporating every part of the tourist
yeah, because we
outfitters.
couldn't do the side by side, this
sunset and
sunset
dinner.
tour and have them at Gold Bar for dinner, but we decided to offer the sunset tour on the second day. So, and we're just seeing how many outfitters have how many spots and who wants to sign up, and, yeah, I think it's gonna be really great. I'll just pretend in my heart it's me,
I'm excited. I think it's gonna be awesome.
and then I'll stop being nervous.
And we have a pretty great headliner, so.
Everybody's looking at me.
Scott-
I'm in the chamber. I'm here to
Okay,
support.
we have a really great headliner. We've really appreciated Sky's support while we've transitioned to a new chamber director, but honestly, I think like you guys won't even believe how incredible Cassie is.
Yeah, we're
It's
gonna,
more
we're
and more
gonna crush it,
impressed
it's gonna be fun,
Let's go.
yeah.
I think collectively, we need to adopt the mantra that however it turns out is exactly how it was planned to be.
That's right.
Mm.
Okay,
Forrest, you're so smart.
and people who weren't there won't know what they've missed
That's true.
until they hear how great it was from people who weren't there,
Yep.
right?
No, we're excited. I think it's gonna be a great fit.
Well, and the other thing that we need to do is make sure that the people who are concerned or worried or most upset about anything are there. Cause we're meant to, like, we wanna make sure,
We need
so
them to talk.
we'll do some, we'll drive around and throw people in one of my vans. But we can also do a little personal recruiting to make sure people know and turn up, so.
Well, and
that-
one thing Cassie is doing is, she's visiting 15 business members a week right now. Which is something that our previous director didn't have the bandwidth to do. And so we actually have her out in the community, the business community, like talking about what's going on, and she's surveying them face to face, saying, what can we do better?
Who is
As a
she?
county, as a chamber, her name's Cassie Oliver.
And she's with the chamber?
Yeah, she's our new director, executive director.
Oh, cool.
We are excited.
Jen Sadoff's a little bit mad that we stole it from the hospital, just saying.
But she was really unhappy at the hospital.
But
She was bored.
And we're sending that our number 2 person we sent to the hospital.
Yeah. It's fine, we're just creating employees.
For the record, they didn't send that person to the hospital. Directed that person to a physician.
Position at the hospital.
That's what
Okay,
chamber is.
Moab,
Yay.
only in Moab do we, find ourselves sharing talent in that way.
Don't I know it?
And we are so fortunate for that. Okay, I'm gonna return us back to the list of prior grant recipients. And 2 notes on the summary that Sky put together in her email. The Arroyo Crossing Moab Area Community Land Trust that's a rural county opportunities grant. That's a 2-year cycle, so we won't be working on the RCFG this year. Rob has already essentially given us a proposal. It's not a proposal, it's just a description of what they would be able to do at community childcare if they had another 75. So we'll invite him to the next meeting. There was an article in the paper last week or 2 about Thompson's infrastructure needs. Chris actually had talked with somebody from Thompson, and I don't know if you've had any further conversations or.
Is that the
maybe
call?
just-
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we had a call. I just want to make sure that was
Great.
the same one. Yeah.
Great.
I mean, I haven't had a further conversation. I mean, I think what I would say where we're at is that we need to have some further conversations, especially given the context that what's available for this funding cycle is just the rural community grant. And if it was an RCOG project, then it would be something we would look at further in the future. I mean, some of the things you guys may have heard, I mean, just to like set the stage slightly. So we, had a conversation with John Corkery and Trish Hedden, who represents that part of Grant County, Thompson Springs. He is the chair of the Thompson Special Service Water District Board and also is a business owner in Thompson. And it's very clear that access to water is like probably the top, bottleneck for development in Thompson and Crescent Junction. So there's a huge need for additional water there. And there are a couple of different, pathways towards that are being explored. And so the article in the paper recently was about the attempt for Grant County Water Sewer to acquire the pipeline from the Green River that goes to Crescent Junction that currently owns. And they needed to build that in order to have access to water for the tailings pile up there. But there's a possibility of that getting transferred and then being able to be used by both but also Thompson for their water supply. That's a big process. I mean, that requires federal
That's
action. It will, so what did you say, Mary?
That's huge. Once you start dealing with the DOE, I mean, we better start 10 years in advance.
Exactly.
Well,
So,
and does it sunset when they're done? Like, is it even available to transfer?
so I think that's why they're trying to have the conversation now, is so that they could get things set up while UMTRA still exists. And it's
Yeah,
still-
they are
Let's make
very.
an investment in Thompson, have a different project.
The DOE in this area that's working on a project really wants to help Thompson. I mean, they're very much on board, but they have to get everything approved.
Yeah.
Even if you have a celebration for another 1,000, million tons moved, it's a big project.
And it may, I mean, so that's something that may require like legislative action at both the state level and potentially the federal level. I mean, there's a lot of steps there. So I think that it makes some sense to have a meanwhile, what happens conversation. And I think that's more where we might fit into things. There's talk about just basically drilling a second well for the community. They basically work off one single well that has declined in production. And they can't grow or open up any new businesses until that's solved.
They're under a moratorium, aren't they?
Exactly, that will expire at some point, but the circumstances of the moratorium are just as, yeah, in place.
Is
and
there
accurate
water in
today.
the water table
So-
in order to drill for?
So the Grant County Commission, and Mary, you can jump in here if you have anything to add, approved funding for a hydrology study for Thompson. So that's like $11,000 for them to do some baseline work to move in that direction of answering those kind of questions.
I would be all for funding $11,000.
So that's, yeah, so that one already happened, and is moving forward. But I think that the question is, and they have a couple of other funding sources like pieces of grant funding that they can put towards a project like this, like a second well project. And, we could maybe be one of those slices of pie that add up to the whole thing, which could be anywhere, like these were very ballpark numbers, but anywhere from like 30 to 50K up to like 300 to 50K. Just based on a lot of factors. And I think that's where, the questions, like, that's where the follow-up needs to happen over the next couple of months to see where we're at and how clear of a project this really is for the coming year. Whether or not this is like a clearly definable, fundable project for the coming year. But from the conversation I had and just like my own take on it, it's like, we were pushed, Colette encouraged us to look outside of Moab as we consider grant opportunities for this type of funding. This fits that. This clearly is infrastructure for economic development in this specific context. So I think it's something really worth pursuing, but will require some work.
May I add something?
Yeah, please.
And so it was gonna basically, if I was right on his numbers, it was taking 48 gallons a minute to 98, is that what we had? Which,
Something like that, yeah, 48 gallons per minute currently.
so what that would do is, and this is again, as Chris was saying, we'd need to validate, but it would enable housing growth opportunity because that right there would open up that flow rate. And there, like you say, was there a CIB grant in place?
Yeah, there's a CID grant and a
And there was
USDA
also
grant.
maybe a private donor, is that?
That I think is the owner of the land. That
Okay.
is, yeah.
So, but it needed to be sized and, they were saying, again, essential infrastructure for housing.
And business. You can't grow business or housing in Thompson without water.
And it does seem that their man-woman power to actually put time, energy and support into these initiatives is extremely limited. So if nothing else, being part of the conversation with them and sort of letting them know that they are not alone and maybe, being active in these pursuits would be a great benefit to them.
Mhm.
Thompson used to be a sweet little bedroom community with Grand County, Moab. During the boom of the uranium when, they brought 30 kids on the bus, Moab every day and they had restaurants, a little motel and nice housing.
It died.
Chris,
Gotta revive it.
Chris, are you thinking that this might be something that we should consider for this coming cycle?
I think that we should have it on our list of things that we're pursuing,
Okay,
with, the caveat that we're not clear yet that it will be ready for action.
Right.
That's still to be determined, I would say. But definitely worth pursuing in my opinion.
okay. And are you willing to work with
Yeah,
folks here
absolutely.
to
No, I think it's interesting.
on tabs of that?
I'm wildly curious about the strategic plan. Like, where's this going?
Thompson as a whole.
Yeah,
They want.
Well, they're not an incorporated
Maybe the
community,
next New York.
so it's an interesting question. It's like,
Next
who
New
does
York.
that, basically?
well, yeah, like what? I mean, they're right on the interstate. Most community, places I've worked, like Farmington, would kill for an interstate,
Yes.
and that's the one thing they got going for them. But anyway, that's an aside.
We haven't been able to like operate businesses. They applied for $100,000 for the STAR grant, which we said, can you get water? That was the big
Right.
question, and they've said, they came back and said, no, we can't. And so that's why, that's the only
The
reason they
water
didn't get
is
funded.
within- Once they
She
get
did
water,
get
I think
funded.
things will
Oh,
start.
we did fund her, yeah, like it was like one thing, we were like, can you get water, can you get water?
You just dispersed the, like.
The 100,000, oh, okay,
Like,
but I think that was our stipulation is prove that you can get water.
A lot of places are gonna need to learn how to operate with less water. Even if it's a big example.
Last but not zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed, we could be efficient, but still need some.
Yeah.
That Maslow.
So is the problem in that area that there's no water or that there's no water rights available because a lot of people are just hoarding them? I don't.
The
First,
well they have is drying out. And so they need to either get a new well or get another source.
And they have to
And so
spend the
that's
money
just money.
I think infrastructure is the larger
issue.
limiting factor rather than water rights at this moment. I mean, I think that there could be a point in which that is not the case, but the Umpqua pipeline comes with permanent water rights. So that includes both sides of it, that long-term solution, but some of the shorter-term solutions would, kind of are piecemeal one at a time.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a future branding statement for Thompson once they get water, and that is gateway to the Ballard Sago Historic District. It may not have the for the old Sago mines.
Better than
For
Thompson
both towns
Springs
there.
Yeah, it is actually a
It's-
designated historic district, but nobody knows that.
It's cool.
It is way.
This whole thing is like opening my mind to Thompson. There's a lot to think about for how,
I think that
where that could possibly be and.
the petroglyphs there are, I think, some of my favorite in the whole area.
But problem is, the Sago Canyon's amazing, but the problem is, once you get to the top, you're right at the res.
Yeah.
But maybe they wanna participate. Just saying, you never know.
Okay, we're gonna return to the list of ideas. And there are two that are listed here as tentative. And that's because, I had a conversation with Shaylee and Jane Gleason about CNY and the strategic plan, and I don't know if there's been any progress with the airport board or anything on that.
I had to miss the last meeting as I was out of town, but I can get an update. I know that we want to move forward with it. We've been involving their department on talks with the airport board. But I'm not sure where we're at with this.
Okay.
And I also I don't know if Chamber's on the list, but for business summit and everything, we'd still love to be considered as a project for 2025.
So, in addition to what you've already received, this is.
Right,
Is
'cause
this
we'd like to continue
continuation?
with similar projects, yeah,
Okay.
so it wouldn't need to be near as big of a funding, but
Okay.
the business summit and.
That's a good reminder point that the rural county grant, as far as I know, at least the last 2 years, has been the source of funding for the business summit.
Which I think we're getting really close to it almost being self-funded from sponsors. It was really close last year,
We'll
but I
see.
think we'll see
Yeah.
this
I
year.
don't think we should wait for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of Powerhouse's big roles is
To get
finding
that one,
sponsors.
Yeah,
That's
well,
one
we'll
of
give
their
them
largest
more
roles,
than
so.
20.
That's great. Okay, moving on, the final, the next to final, subject, on the agenda is approving minutes of the April 24th and March 27th meeting. Can we do this in one motion?
Sure.
Okay, let's
Let's do that first. and then
Okay,
I'll-
okay. So, entertain a motion to approve the March 27 and April 24 meeting.
I make a
Minutes.
motion to approve.
Shirley has second,
Second.
and Melissa is second. So All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. Yes, Chris?
If I could just throw out one more thing this is for the future, but I just want to sort of report to the board on a
Please.
conversation. I had, one of the things that Lisa, we had talked about in the past, and several of us at the table is, need for sort of like a food incubator. Some
Yeah.
sort of a space where like food related businesses could have access to a shared kitchen and some support. I had a conversation, with the chair of the board of YGP, Youth Garden Project, which is where we actually, my coffee company started sharing their kitchen. They have really limited space available for sort of sharing. It's too limited for most businesses. But they're beginning a process of looking at like redoing their space and like capital, sort of the infrastructure of YGP. It'll be like a 2-year process. But, there may be some interest in partnering to help bring in funding that then they would use to open that, improved kitchen space, and providing some support to businesses in the county. So anyway, just so that there's like a very initial conversation, but something that I'm really think would be supportive of a lot of businesses in the area. It would be a cool thing to follow up on and maybe consider for future, not this year. Either of the grants, depending on the size of the project as it turns out.
I think that is a huge need, and I want to add to that is, I met with, Angie and toured Osta over this last month. And we were talking about multi-use space, future spaces there, and as we were touring through, there was a local caterer who was preparing, had rented the space, the entry space is right, you walk into Osta, there's that sort of big bar and the sort of the entry space. Angie's fixed it up to code enough for people to bring in, like plug in crock pots and do very minimal setup, but she says it gets used a lot, and that is extremely minimal facility. So I think there's a huge opportunity in that.
So
So
not
the-
speaking, oh,
Well,
sorry.
go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, not speaking only to that, but using that as an example. Colette had mentioned earlier, talking about pairing existing projects, existing funding. What I like so much about a project like that is it's so multi-layered. So if we have a commercial kitchen, commissary kitchen, think about all of the things that just that one project encompasses. We've got food handlers training, workforce development and training around culinary that can operate year round. Commissary kitchen accommodates manufactured goods that can be available to sell for the 3 to 4 million annual visitors that we get here. The really cool thing about Moab is that we don't just get 3 to 4 million new consumers that come to us. They're a new batch every time. So they see it the first time when they come here. And then also they're used for ghost kitchens, and the hurdle for that for people who want to be able to offer food delivery, takeout, adventure lunches to go, like all of those different things. The hurdle to that is a really minimal rental fee for a kitchen where they could be a ghost kitchen and people can order takeout and delivery via app. One commissary kitchen facility like that is like retail, manufacturing, workforce training, hospitality with some year-round potential for training, and I love that.
So the key word was up to code enough.
Per space.
Yeah, because I have a commercial kitchen, but the only thing we didn't do was pay for the $15,000 hood. Fireproof, it's a huge thing, and since we don't prep food before our trips, but the space is empty a lot. Because it's really busy in the spring and the fall, it's available all winter, it's available part of the summer.
Yeah.
And there's big space for storage and prepping and doing all kinds of things. I mean, there's only one oven there now, but another oven is easy,
Expense.
yeah, the hood is crazy, but depending on how, like, either, maybe I should apply for a grant to build a hood, contractor will lose his mind. But, and he walks on water, so I don't want him to go crazy, but whatever, but like, I thought about that before, so, but that point of people are renting it for some function and the health department's not saying, well, you don't have a fireproof hood. So,
I mean, there's limitations, like.
Yeah,
they were
what they
like
can
like
put.
It's very
Little
limited.
crock pot thingies, not like, you're not. they're not-
Yeah, so depending on what's most cooked,
Right,
like,
so-
it seems like it's worth looking into a little bit more, because people keep mentioning this. And
It's a
yes,
need in our town, for sure.
yeah, the youth.
What's a feeder too? There's,
Not this.
you use the incubator, you could go right into a position in one of the mini restaurants, hotels here.
That's where I think what's a cool tie-in, thinking of YGP as a possible sponsor of this, is like they have their own mission, right? And youth is a part of like the name of the organization. So if there was a workforce, sort of educational tie-in to it, that would make it a lot easier for them to support the economic development side of the mission that we're pushing for.
Well, they could walk from YGP to my kitchen.
Yeah,
So like, if we could do something where while they're trying to figure it out, because they have to grow some vegetables too, like.
yeah.
But, anyway, I'm happy to keep thinking about that.
Cool.
We've been thinking about it a little bit, but when they said, okay, this hood. it's like, "Ugh." So,
Commercial kitchens are a problem all over the state, and the lack of them, and food trucks are not going to go away. It's going to be an ongoing economy, but it's hard. A lot of people are finding it difficult to make it cash flow in building out a commercial type of commissary for people to come in and have multiple users. And so that's one of the challenges. You have a fine line. It's a fine line between how much you can charge some of these people in the food trucks, and then also what it costs, like to get a $15,000 hood and stuff. And so it's tricky.
But I think that's exactly why it's something that we should consider, because it's one of those projects that can be supportive of so many different businesses and doesn't happen on its own a lot of the time, right? Because especially in a smaller community like ours, it won't happen without some additional support.
Yeah.
And that's where some government support to get over that finish line financially can make a really big.
Well, and I have everything else, like I have the second sink to wash your hands, like we did
We
everything.
just need someone
but the
to
hood.
run it.
If
Well, no,
anyone's
right?
curious-
That's right.
We got a lot of people talking, so.
If anyone's curious about really successful models that I love, if you wanted to look, Cloud Kitchens, you can look them up online. And they have a really great model that has a technology platform as well that allows people to hook up things like Grubhub delivery, and how they rent out the kitchen. And that, to your point, Roger, is a really profitable model. And then the other one is right here in Utah, Spice Kitchen out of Salt Lake in partnership with IRC. And they have it available for people who are using it as the springboard for their food truck businesses. And then in partnering with the New Americans program with IRC, they've had a lot of success. And I love their facility. But there are a lot of really great models that we can look to. You're not reinventing the wheel. I mean,
Well, plus the point you made, I've always thought that we should be making salsa, duh, and
Right.
selling it to the tourist. Like that, like.
It's a
they're-
weird segue.
or
No,
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There
like,
are
but we're
so
growing
many-
the tomatoes, like, or apricot
Businesses
jam, we
all
have
over
10,000
businesses.
apricot trees, we used to be an orchard.
I mean, we could go back to manufacturing all day long. We
No,
should be
yeah.
manufacturing in Moab.
Well, I ran a bike factory and I can tell you that light manufacturing in a rural area is brain damage, but farming food, like taking the food that like, we're throwing away bajillion apricots. Like we could make, if we ran an apricot in the salsa thing, like it would be a great, and sell it in, Moab, or whatever, I don't know. Sorry, now we just invented a business.
We're
We can move
bouncing
this
around
kitchen to
between
Tom.
the guys' hills,
Get tired and weird now.
but it's really creative.
Apricot salsa.
And it's really creative, so.
It's like, this just got weird.
We just sort of hit the wall, I think,
Yeah,
collectively,
I
so. So in terms of the commissary kitchen idea, who is going to think more about that for the next meeting?
We need a proposal.
I am, because I own one already.
And honestly, this is
So-
a huge passion project for Melissa, so I think, like,
I mean, I think we should.
Like a dozen of them.
I
that-
know,
like,
but this is a big one for you.
You,
for
we
sure.
have to get together.
And she's already volunteered on the process. So,
She's already
so
volunteered.
Chris, would you work with Ashley on the
Yeah,
idea
absolutely.
of finding
Sorry,
ways
Chris.
to incorporate or the YGP project may have some benefits as well, so maybe there's some integration there of ideas.
Yeah, we should have a conversation.
Okay. All right,
Well,
I'm super interested.
any,
We should have lunch, three of us, at a food truck.
sounds like a good idea.
meet at the food court. I can.
By
set-
the way, that's another one too, is we've talked about those assets for product development
Mhm.
for when people come, because I think it ties into the arts programming as well. Being able to have indoor, outdoor, like by the food truck park that can be rented out all season long. Being able to have those products available to have beer tasting and, you know what I mean?
See,
Like,
that's the kind of
really-
infrastructure grant we should.
That's,
that-
and that's the
yeah.
infrastructure that I'm
We should
talking
buy,
about.
we should
Yes.
be investing in that. We don't need light manufacturing infrastructure. We need infrastructure.
She's running for
Yes.
commission to change the world.
Okay.
What's going on with you?
Okay.
Are you gonna
I-
run for commission too?
I'm gonna pull on her ear.
Everyone here should just run.
Okay, and you said that figuratively.
Not me.
Yes,
I'm not-
yes, I'm not suggesting.
So good stuff for this meeting. We got some ideas and discussion topics for next meeting. Some assignments have been accepted, so thank you for that. If there's nothing else for the good of the order,
Thank you.
I dare you. Nothing else for the good of the order, the meeting is adjourned.
Hey, wait a minute.
His hands up though.
Hey, listen, I've had my hand up for a half an hour here.
My apology, my apology.
Cause you have to be in
And
person.
I just want to get this in because Colette's with GoEd. And she's got an ear for the governor, or the governor's got her ear. Or the governor's got ear to her.
Something's happening.
2001, we had, when the Olympic flame came, it came to Arches National Park at Delicate Arch. And I think we ought to be campaigning for that right now. Again, when they get the next Winter Olympics.
Good point. That's a really good idea. You are.
I like it. We're so early.
Great. Yes.
100%.
So, no, I think we need to start right now.
Yes, they are planning right now. Absolutely.
Who do we talk, how do we do
Who's
that?
on the committee?
How do we call them?
If anyone had had lunch with a senator's person.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I would start with your state representatives and start lobbying the state representatives for your region.
Yeah, we'll start,
Senator
we'll have the
Hinckley
chamber work on that, cause
knows us.
we're in a lot of talks right now.
And Forrest, I have some updates to share. It can be before or after the meeting ends, if
Let's do it
it's
now.
possible to have a few minutes.
Let's do it now.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you so much. So I have a couple of very important updates for the group. So first and foremost, just wanted to share that our management team, Ryan Starks and Corianne Edwards, after much pushing from me, they are getting out into the rural areas. They're visiting all 24 rural counties in 2024. We had originally scheduled a visit late August, early September. However, it looks like we're going to have to change that to early November for Grand County, but I will
That's
work
okay.
with Ben and
Yes.
Sky and the group to ensure that we have lots of planning and get all the right folks to that meeting, and including this board will be invited. So that's just a little update on that. My second important update is some of you, this may impact some of you, it may not, but GOEO has ended their contract with EDC Utah. It was a very large contract, actually $1 million contract. And part of the reasoning is that GOEO felt that EDC Utah didn't have the reach into the rural communities. And so we have taken on the activities that were previously completed by EDC Utah. And so we'll be seeing some changes that way. And that will be effective on July 1st. Their contract ends at the end of June. And so if you've seen anything online or just heard rumblings, just know that we are in transition and there'll be more information to come. And we're hoping to have better service all the way around across the state. With that change, we've had some structural changes with our team. And so Lance Soth, who has been the outreach manager, he has been promoted internally to business recruitment and retention to fill the vacancy of the EDC Utah operations. And so that has also changed my position. They have moved me into the management position over all of the outreach managers for the state. And so you're not losing me, but it's actually a good thing because we're going to be hiring an additional team member on the eastern side of the state that will cover the CERTA area, the AOG area of Carbon, Emery, Grand, and San Juan. So you'll have a local person working in the outreach manager capacity, and I will be the outreach manager. And so I will still be involved. That transition will happen this summer. The job is advertised now, and I will share that out again to Forrest and Ben and Sky so they can disperse it to each of you. If you have any interested, anyone that you think would be interested, we'd love to get all applications. And if you have any questions, I can be reached by phone or text or email. But that is something that I've been asking for probably for the last year. I really feel strongly that you need to have someone that's in your community that can attend a city meeting at the drop of a hat, or a county meeting or an AOG meeting, and have that strong representation for the eastern side of the state, specifically Moab and San Juan counties. So I am excited about that. A little bit sad that I won't be there quite as frequently, but I will be visiting as in a supervisor position. And I will always be available to this team regardless. So those are the updates. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, offline. And again, it's a rural model that was pushed through by Governor Cox. He really wanted to ensure that we had more hands-on work in the rural areas, that we had staff, and we've proven that this model works. We're growing our team across the state. And again, it's not to replace or duplicate efforts by the county economic development team or tourism team, but again, just to assist and ensure that we're making connections to funding and resources. So it's a good change.
Congratulations on the promotion, Colette.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
We'll be relying on you still.
Yes.
A
Please
lot.
do.
Is this public, this change yet? I mean, does
So-
everyone know?
It's
The first I've heard of
I would say, it's public, but it's semi-public. We
Yeah.
specifically with the EDC Utah, and that was one thing that I requested in my team meeting this week. We had an all-staff meeting, and I asked Ryan Starks, our director, to please ensure that we had a communication package. They were trying to be respectful to EDC Utah to let the contract finish and also let them communicate with all of their members. It was a pay-to-play model, and we felt that that was very limiting, especially for the rural areas. Not every area could afford the funds for the pay-to-play. And so because it is tax money, we wanted it to be more equitable. So again, that's why we are taking back that piece. And they're building an internal team. So yeah, we're really excited. And so not only are you getting someone that's local and you have me, but you also have Lance, and then there'll be another business development, recruitment and development person that will be over your region too. So you're going to have so many GoEO people, you'll probably be sick of us.
I love it. I love it.
I don't think.
That's wonderful. Thank you so
great
much,
news.
and
Thanks for letting
congratulations.
us know. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. We are adjourned, but Roger, if you
Yes.
would stay on for just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Good conversation, good discussion. We've got some forward movement
Yes.
and we've got some volunteers who volunteer.
I'm excited.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Goodbye.
So I was gonna say, I was blind, I didn't know it was appropriate, but I was gonna say something. so. Did you?
Oh, wait, they got married? No, they got engaged. I want to know when it's my party.
In 2 years. Thanks, guys.
That's a tie.
Roger.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of.
I just want to let you know.
Gives me experience.
We've got chat boxes, so I just want to let you know that you will receive an email from Ben or from me acknowledging the acceptance of the.
I'm asking, tell me where I come.
Hey, Forrest,
So
I
you
can't-
that in mind.
I can't catch you.
He'll call you right back.
When can we go to lunch?
Okay, we'll call you on the phone. right
Okay.
now.
Let me get you my cell phone. Make sure you've got, okay,
Yeah, Sty has it up there.
perfect.
How about you call me earlier, right?